religions really do need to take into consideration the mental health effects on women, teenage girls who encounter issues concerning pregnancy. I grew up in so many churches that never talked about abortion, reproductive rights, consent, and imagine getting pregnant regardless of your age, even though, age compounds trauma and just the event that they go through. Imagine growing up, getting pregnant anywhere from the age of 15 to 40 and never knowing how to have access to good health care. Mental health was never something even hinted at in any church or in my family. Mental health days weren't even something I was taught until I was halfway through my 20s. And that was at a workplace conference for RAIN classes. Mental health is very important. And religion, from what I've experienced, does very little to address, help, and sustain good mental health. Everyone in my family and probably in the churches I went to based on their doctrine believes that therapy is evil, that it brainwashes people away from God, that it's BS. When you grow up in an environment where taking care of yourself or gaining access to therapists who can assist you in getting good mental health is made as the butt of a joke, erased, or invalidated as very unbearable to 1 out of 5 people, especially teenagers. 1 out of 5 teenagers suffers from chronic or acute depression, anxiety, all kinds of body dysphoria, or, there's such a spectrum of different things, self-harm. And when it's never addressed in any Baptist church I've ever attended, I think it's a silent epidemic. Because prayer and religion is always primary, and mental health doesn't exist. And if you're lucky to have been in a denomination or the lack of religion where it was focused on and people were educated and they had regular, consistent access to good health care, therapy, and good mental health, that's great. But a lot of people, I'd say the majority of people who grow up in high control religions, specifically fundamentalist Christianity, have no access. Or whatever access they do have isn't factual or medically legal or even helpful. Most therapy that Christians or even teenagers are introduced to in Southern Baptist is conversion therapy or couples counseling. If you're not married and you're not gay, there's really no reason to be in therapy. At least that's what they think. And it's so dehumanizing to women. There are women who get abortions and they suffer from post-abortion depression, postpartum depression. There's so many different kinds of depression. And if you are in a home or an environment that doesn't allow you to make a choice about abortion, like being pro-abortion and actually doing it, there are women who have to hide it their whole life because it's not acceptable, especially in Catholic circles. A lot of religious denominations view abortion as one of the most mortal sins there is. And imagine if they ever tell or they're found out, the shame. I've watched YouTube videos where pastors shame women for being pregnant and unmarried, even under the age of when you graduate from high school. Because when you grow up in an environment that worships marriage, purity, virginity, and the ideal woman, any woman who doesn't live up to the impossible standard of being Barbie, it's so unbearable. I've known women who've hid abortions from everyone they knew. Some even had abortions because they were afraid their partner would abandon them. And there are legitimate reasons to choosing to get an abortion or to not getting one. I don't think it's anyone's business but yours and your doctor's. And I don't think having one or not having one is wrong. It's what's right for the person, because they're the one who has to live with it. They're either going to have to raise the kid or they're not. And there is no wrong decision. I mean, you can believe whatever you want. It's America. But telling other people what they're doing is wrong, or shaming people for having a different opinion or doing something different from you, is un-American, even though it's pretty historically accurate. And our government, they want to criminalize women who get abortions, like put them in prison. Because having kids is something that conservatives worship. I think they worship having kids and the family more than they worship God. And the side effects of women having to choose an abortion or not to have an abortion is erased in any denomination I've been in. And it's so sad because women suffer alone. How many women's lives were ruined because they couldn't afford an abortion, or they were guilted into keeping a kid they didn't want for so many different reasons or different people involved. Everyone has a right to decide what they want to do with their body and who they want in their life. And just because you've consented to be with a person does not mean you've consented to be a parent. And there's something about America where we can't allow adults to make their own decisions. We can't and won't allow adult women who are entirely sovereign or should be sovereign. We have a problem in this country as viewing women as being their own person. Women don't need a man to be complete. There's nothing wrong with desiring one or desiring something very different. But our society, I would say majoritively, do not view women as being whole, being alone. And as long as our society views women as though they're cattle to give birth to children, I honestly believe nothing will change. Because the countries in the world that are prospering and gaining modernization by leaps and bounds don't have the death penalty, have free healthcare or low-cost healthcare. They don't have insurance companies profiting off people and their sickness. Women have 100% access to any healthcare deemed necessary by themselves or their GP. And children have a good life. There's no incentive to be a mother in America. We don't offer maternity leave consistently being paid. We don't offer women 3 days a month minimum to take care of ourselves. Most jobs don't even offer mental health days. And if it wasn't a federal law to give people a specific amount of days off a year paid, they wouldn't. The government thinks that paying expectant mothers $5,000 is going to make a dent in what children cost. I mean, that wouldn't even cover half of your delivery bill at a hospital. There's little to nothing that mothers aren't shamed into getting. We don't treat women well. I mean, we treat our dogs better than we treat our women, which is terrible. And women should not have to beg or wait. The wait usually kills the women because they have to wait for authorization. Healthcare should always put the patient first. And if you need consent to take people's internal organs, to resuscitate, or to operate on someone, you should have someone's consent to use them as an incubator, whether conscious or unconscious. I mean, what society do we live in where a woman is either unconscious or is alive and can't decide what's inside their body? Even children who are pregnant can make their own decisions regardless of age, and those are different by state. But in a lot of states, if you're pregnant, you are medically emancipated. Not legally, medically. If a child's life is in danger and the parent won't step up and help the child should be able to do what needs to be done to save their own life. The same with people, women, or anyone who's pregnant. If you can't get the health care you need to protect your life, the life you want, your future, your career, your desires, then you're not equal and you're not free. We need to stop infantilizing women in America. Women don't need men's consent to decide what we do with our bodies. Even if your partner wants the child, if she doesn't want it, no court in the land should have the right to force her to remain pregnant. If you want a child, have a child with someone who wants a child. And until we treat women the same way we treat men, by having 100% bodily autonomy and medical choice, we are not a good nation. We will never be the greatest, and my prediction is in a few hundred years we might not be around anymore, because countries that treat women like crap usually vanish or they sink into depravity, which means they're not a world power anymore. Because when the majority of people in your country, women are the majority, are treated like crap, there's really no reason to get out of bed and work hard, because over half the people in the country don't have a good day to look forward to. Which is why countries that are under communism and fascism, why there's economic plummeting. So we need to start treating women as though they are equal. They're not a prize. They're not an asset. They're a human being. In any country that requires a woman to get a man's consent to save her own life, bleeding on a gurney, is not a country any woman with sense should want to be in. And hopefully the women who can't afford to leave get smart and leaves to have a better life. But nothing's going to change until we start treating ourselves as equal. Because when women will no longer put up with men's crap, things will start changing. And there will be consequences for countries that don't allow their women a better life. Every generation should offer women a better life. And if they can't or won't, they're going to shoot themselves in their own foot, metaphorically speaking. But if you can't get any form of health care, reproductive, birth control, like whatever, If you have to leave your city, your state, to get treatment, that is not a place that values women for just being themselves. And I think our country only respects and values women from what we get from them. And until women just decide, you know what? If you're not going to give me what I, as a human being, should have, then I'm not going to do anything for you. I mean, fair's fair. If men won't give women 100% autonomy for reproduction, just stop having sex with them. Stop doing their domestic labor. Stop marrying them. Stop settling down with them. And until we stop rewarding men for treating us like crap, we will never be equal. Because things only change under pressure, threats, or people leave and there's no one to control anymore. And feminism has come a long way. But the most deadly threat to feminism is women who vote against their better judgment. As long as women vote for misogynistic, white, racist men, they're not doing anyone favors. Do you think women voting for Trump is giving them a better tomorrow? He's not giving the Epstein survivors a better tomorrow. And a man who has 26 sexual misconduct accusations isn't treating anyone any better. And no amount of perks is enough to have a president who's a sex offender. It's embarrassing. We are an embarrassment. And it's because, one of the reasons is because a lot of women and a lot of minorities voted against what's best for them. And by best, I mean voting someone into the White House that protects everyone's rights, doesn't arrest people for not being white, doesn't take away women's ability to choose things about their uterus. But we're not going to get any better until we start treating ourselves better, expecting more, not putting up with people's crap. And if men don't treat us with respect, then maybe losing access to us is the only way they'll learn. And not all men are bad. There's a lot of good men out there. But until women make it very clear that if you don't give us 100% autonomy of our reproduction, we're just not going to do things for you anymore. It sounds fair. If you don't give women health care and abortion possibilities and access, just stop having children. It's hard to be sad about a right you never have to not use. Because if you're not pregnant, you don't need the right, even though you probably should still have it. We just need to stop relying on white racist men in charge to give us what we deserve.